All right, so it is 12, so I'm going to go ahead and get into the session today, so we can kind of dig into that a little bit. So basically, let me grab a link to this really quick, and I'll put it in the Slack channel. Where is that? There it is. So a couple, I think almost a year ago now, we did. I did a presentation when hub sites kind of first came out, and at that time, all of the things that you could do with hub sites had to be through PowerShell, and so I demoed some of that. So you can still do those things. So those like hub site, those PowerShell commands are still out there, still available. But in just recent months, they've moved a lot of that into the new admin center, the new SharePoint admin center. So you can actually do a lot of that work, kind of create new hub sites and associate other sites to hub sites and do some of that kind of stuff inside the browser, which was really helpful for a lot of people that just don't have the ability to run PowerShell. So I'm going to post a link to the old video just in case, because I kind of talk about what hub sites are in that video, and I'm not going to really spend as much time on that today because I really want to get into some of these different features. So first thing I'll do, I'm going to kind of go through and just kind of show you in the admin center what you can do with hub sites, kind of just show you some of the basic things out there. For those that have used this before, that probably will be pretty familiar to you. And then what I also wanted to get into is that in site designs, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, in site designs there is a hub site action that actually works really well. And that allows you to, basically, when a user goes out there and creates a site, they have, right in the browser, they also have the ability in their site to join it to a hub site. But sometimes you may not want to rely on them to do that, or you're not sure that they're going to know to do that, or the training might be hard, to kind of put that message across. So what you can do is you can actually, in the site design, you can build in so that when they use that, when they click that site design option, when they're creating a site, it automatically joins it to the correct hub site. So that's a really neat thing to know, and also really, really good from like a governance perspective, something to consider. I think site designs are really helpful in that way. So we'll look at that. And then I wanted to kind of end with the flow actions around hub sites, which have been very interesting. I'm sure you guys remember last week Laura was trying to do something with site designs and flow. And kind of like struggling a little, but I think she posted a blog post. I think the link is in the general channel about that, but she got that functioning. So I kind of had, probably not quite as complicated, but I had a little bit of a struggle with the hub site flow actions. And some of it's interesting. Some of it I feel like is maybe just not ready, or kind of like half-baked, if you will. So we'll take a look at that, and I'll show you what I did and how it's a little clunky. So it's kind of interesting. We'll kind of see how those things develop over time. And of course, as always, if you guys have used them and know anything that I may not be aware of, then please feel free to put that in the Slack channel. All right, so without further ado, let me go ahead and switch this over to my other screen. And let's see, hopefully you guys see that. And like I said, if you notice, I'll be kind of trying to keep my eye on the Slack channel. If you notice any kind of weird delays or anything like that, let me know, and I can just try unclicking my camera from the bottom left-hand corner, and maybe that will help. Like I think I mentioned in the chat that my internet isn't great. We're getting an upgrade, but they just haven't come out to do that install yet. So hopefully we can at least get through this. Okay. So let's see. All right. As I mentioned, I'm gonna adjust my screen here real quick. As I mentioned, a lot of the features of kind of creating hub sites and associating things to hub sites have moved from being kind of PowerShell only into the browser here. And so this is the new SharePoint Admin Center. And this part of it is really, really straightforward and really, really simple. So basically, you'll notice here in my hub site association column, I already have some of this stuff set up. So you'll notice that I have two. I have like a central hub site called Hub, very creative. Like I said, very creative. Um, and then you'll notice there that's in parentheses, it tells me that it's a hub site. And then I also have a finance hub in parentheses that tells me that that's a hub site. And then what I can see is that where they just say hub like this, and like I said, the naming convention is kind of confusing, but this is showing me that the corporate and the HRA and the IT sites are connected and associated with the main hub. So that just kind of shows me that connection. And so if I were to click, and I'll just click some random site just to kind of show you this. So if I click another site that's just not a hub site, not associated to a hub, and I go to, I have hub site here, and I can click on that, and I can do register as a hub site or associate with a hub site. So I have both of those options. So register means it becomes a hub site, obviously, and then associate means I would connect it to another existing hub site. So register, I'm going to click register here. And then what I wanted to point out, because this is something that we have been only able to really do in PowerShell in the past, but you can actually, from here, you can, one, give it a display name, so instead of just calling it Hub, you can actually give it a display name so that you can kind of tell it apart here. And then you can also pick people who can associate sites with this hub site. And this will come into play a little later with the whole flow stuff I'm going to talk about, but basically you could put people's names in here, or you put a group in here, and that essentially says that only they can, in the browser, only they can actually like click to associate a site to a hub. They will, not all users would see that in the drop-down. Only those people would see that. So that just kind of, if you have a large organization, you're concerned about people associating to hubs that they're not supposed to, that's just like a whole governance conversation there. But the neat thing is instead of having to run a PowerShell script with those users, you can actually do that right from the browser. So, and like I said, I'll talk about that a little bit more in the later part when I get into the flow actions, because the flow actions really a lot to like approving and joining people that are trying to connect to your hub site, and if you had like that security around it. All right, so just want to point that out really quick. So let me check. I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat too. It'd be great if I had 3 screens instead of just 2, but hopefully I can check and see. Let's see. All right. I think somebody was looking for the link, but I think they got it. All right. So another part of this is, like I said, the hub site association. So obviously as an admin, as you saw earlier, just even clicking on this one here, I can go to hub site, register, or associate with the hub site, sorry, click on that. And then here I would get a drop down of all of the hub sites, and I can go ahead and pick which one of those that I want to associate this site with. And that's something that I can do just like right from the browser. I also, as a user, so if I want to go, and I'll just open one of these guys up. And of course, as you guys probably remember from last time, everything's a little bit slow when I'm doing this broadcast. It's not usually this slow. All right, give it a second to load everything up. Song and dance time. All right, and then as a user, this one is actually already associated, but if I was the creator of this site and I own this site, then I could actually go to the site actions gear and go to site information. And then here is where I would see the hub site association drop down, and I would be able to click and get that automatically added to the hub site. So that's one thing. And like I said, obviously that's a really easy step, but if you have, if you're a large organization, you have thousands of users, communicating that they need to do that might be a little difficult. So you, one of the things I really like that you can do is you can build that connection, so that like connecting it to a hub site into a site design, so that when they just go to create the site from the site design, boom, that work is done for you. So let me go ahead and we can kind of talk through that. All right. So let's see here. So the one thing that you will need to get, and let me just do this real quick in PowerShell, that you will need kind of before you start creating your actual script, is you're going to need to get the ID for the hub site. So that's going to be something that you're going to need to put into your site script so that it knows exactly which of the hub sites you want to connect to. So I'm just going to get connected to PowerShell, and then I'll show you that. All right. So with that, I'm just going to run the command, and of course you can actually specify a specific hub site when you do this, within like just by adding the identity at the end. But I'm just going to do get SPO's hub site, because I only have 2, so it keeps it pretty easy. And on my get SPO hub site that I run, once I connect, I am actually getting, I have 2 hub sites, and the ID is right there. So I just need the ID, and I'm actually going to take the ID of my main hub here for this specific situation. Let's see. All right. And so I'm going to grab that, and I just need that for my actual site script. So when I run that, it just knows exactly which hub site to connect to. So let's take a look at my script now. So here I have my actual site script, and we went over site designs and site scripts just a few weeks ago. So if you're needing kind of like an entry level into this, then just go back, and like 2 weeks ago I think we covered it. In a great detail. So here, this site script just does a couple of things. It adds a couple libraries, a couple columns, does some stuff in the navigation, and then down at the bottom, I added this, and this is just all you need in the hub script, in the site script for adding to a hub site. So my verb, which is what it's doing, is join hub site, and then my hub site ID is just that ID I pulled. And it's that simple. I just added that to the bottom of my existing script here. And that is going to do the work of when my user creates a new site, it will do the work of adding it to the hub. So I'll go ahead and we'll just run these real fast. And like I said, I'm not going to kind of take too much time kind of going through the site script stuff, since we did that last 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to pop this script in here. And then I'm going to associate that script. And then I'm going to grab this. This is the actual script inside of our environment. And then I'm going to create the site design. Alright. And I like grabbing these IDs too and just storing them, so if I ever need to remove something, especially in a test environment. Alright, so I went ahead and I ran that. So now my user will be able to go over to the SharePoint home. And I'll show you my hub site too real quick before we do this, so just so you can kind of see the change. So go to my hub. Alright. So I put my, so here's my hub site. So you'll notice that I've changed the look on my hub site a little bit. So I have obviously the global navigation, which is a hub site function. So this gives you this global navigation that will go across all sites that are connected to the hub. And then you'll see that even that global navigation, I've set that to have the mega menu. So that change the look stuff that we talked about a few weeks back. I also have, an icon, a certain color code back here, a color border back there. I've changed the color theme of the site. There's the logo, and then down at the bottom, I have a footer. So just a couple of different things that I have of this hub site that we would be looking, when something gets connected to bring over. So one thing I will do now is I'm going to go to create a site. And let's say I'm going to create the marketing site. Hopefully I have that open. And then when I choose a design, I have intranet department. So that's the one, that's that site design I just put out there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish. Get that created. And what you'll notice as it continues to think, it's telling me that it's applying my site design, so I can go ahead and view the progress of that. And it's going to run through and it's going to do everything that I wanted it to do. And you see it did it pretty quickly. It had, was adding some lists and libraries and fields. And then the very last thing is it added it to a hub site. Now, before I click View Updated Site, you'll notice that the background is white. There was none of that global nav was up there. Everything was, just kind of like a generic, clean communication site. So now if I click View Updated Site, it'll refresh. And now it just takes a second to kind of load everything, but you'll notice that my theming is changed, my global navigation is up there, and that kind of thing. So you'll see that now it has connected, and it's now joined into that hub. So that's exactly what I wanted it to do. One thing I will point out is I noticed that the theming comes over, but one thing, and also obviously the mega menu, but I made the hub site have the compact header, and that did not come over. So I tested that a few times and I noticed that. And then also, which is good for you guys to know, the footer did not come over. So the color is right, but the information that I put in the footer, like the image and the links, those did not come over as a part of that connection. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you'd probably have to, either do that manually, or maybe there's a way to do it with PowerShell. All right, so I'm going to go check the chat because let me see what questions you guys have. So we'll take a quick little break from there. Let's see. So it looks like some people, hopefully if you guys, somebody asked, how do you find the ID if it is SharePoint Online? So this is SharePoint Online, and I'm running an SPO script. So I'm using PowerShell and connecting to SPO Online. And running scripts, and there's a lot of documentation out there. Actually, if you go back and watch our site design video, I have some information that I kind of walk through that step by step, so you can kind of see how that works. Let's see. Yeah, and it looks like Zach linked that over. So yeah, that's the linking to getting SPO hub site and everything like that. And if you go back for, like I said, to that other video, then I have some links for that too. So, all right. Any questions about just the site design piece? Anything you guys want me to kind of go back over a little bit more slowly or anything like that? I'll give you guys a second to put some of those things in there. But I think it's kind of interesting that it does some of the change the look stuff. It brings some of that over, but not all of it. So I found that kind of interesting. And I think I mentioned that during our site design session that I kind of wanted to try that out and see what it would bring over and what it wouldn't. And you'll see here, if I go to the admin center now and refresh, you will see that that new site is connected to the hub. Let's see, where is that? What did I call it? Marketing? There it is. So you'll see that marketing, scroll up a little bit, and it's connected. Hub Site Association is the hub. How do you populate the mega menu? Paul asked me that question. So we covered that also. Like I said, go back to the other video because we covered that. But I'll show you real quick. So when you're dealing with the mega menu, so if you're talking about how do you add links to the hub, like that global navigation, you have to do that from the hub site, and you'll see the edit button right there. And that looks just like it does for most sites when you're like messing with the navigation. And then populating a mega menu, you just have the ability, just like you would normally. You have the ability to add links, and then you can make them sublinks. So that way they can kind of fall into that the way that you see there. So HR is a link, and then underneath HR is benefits. Functions is the top level thing, and then underneath that is HR, and then underneath that is benefits. And you just are able to do that right from, you'll see that the options are there to promote or make sublink. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, that's for the global nav, you have to do that, the hub site global nav, you have to do that from the actual hub site. Edit that and add the links, and then that will carry over, those links will carry over into everything that's connected to that hub site automatically. So you don't have to manage that in two places. So it's kind of what I don't know if you guys remember the kind of the metadata navigation stuff with managed metadata. If you use that at all in the past, I feel like this is what that was like setting out to do, but that was kind of difficult and can be very confusing because the way you had to deal with the term sets and stuff like that. And this is much more kind of straightforward. Did you try anything with the logo at the top to carry over also? So I did not, but you can. And that is actually something that I believe has to be done with PowerShell. Let me go pull this. Is something I'm going to talk about anyway in a little bit. But let me show, I think I have a link to that. Hold on. Where's my links? There we go. So I'm going to put this link, and I'm going to talk about this again in a little bit. Craig. But this is set SPO hub site, and set SPO hub site is pretty much where you would set like the hub site's like title and description, and also something called join approval that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then there you can set a logo URL, and I think if you do it there, I have not tested it, but I think if you do it there, then it would become like really a part of that hub site, and then it should kind of carry over into the connecting sites. But this one I did not do that way. I just loaded it directly on the site. So that's something I'm not sure about, but it has, might be worth trying to see how that works. So Paul said, oh yeah, there's no dumb questions, not at all. I just wanted to make sure that I was, answering the right thing that you were asking. No dumb questions though. Alright, so KB asks, when creating a hub site, if you leave the name or group field blank, i.e. don't specify who can associate their sites, does that mean that anyone can associate their sites with that hub site? Yes, it does. It means that it is open. So site design works the same way. If you don't put somebody in that field, it just means that anybody can use it. And hub sites are the same. So it means if you don't put anybody in there, it's just open to everybody. And we'll talk about that more next, because we're going to kind of look at some of the pros and cons and clunkiness of that process. All right. So I'm going to look away from questions, but feel free to keep putting them in there, and I will come back. Just don't if I don't answer your question right away, it's just because I am looking away, but I will come back and take a look in just a few minutes. So let's go ahead and talk about flow a little bit. Alright, so in my scenario, I'm going to close some of these sites so my connection isn't as bad. So in this scenario specifically, I have a hub site called Finance. And Finance is a hub site where we have specifically specified all those words. We have specified a user that is the only user that can add hub sites to that, or add sites to that finance hub site. So like I am that user, this login that I have pulled up here. So me as this user, you know, if I go to look, I'll just pull up another site. If I go look at the site information and the hub site join, love the speed here. If I go to look at site information as this user, then I actually see Hub Site Association. I see Finance Hub as an option. But if I am another user, so I have another browser, an incognito browser over here, and this is a separate user, not me. And if I am this user, and let me refresh this because from my testing earlier, it still shows that they're connected. But now as this user, if I go ahead and I create, or I go to like site information, so this is the same tenant. I'm just going to go to site information and Hub Site Association, and I do not see Finance Hub. I see Hub because that's the one that's kind of open to everybody, but I don't see the Finance Hub there. But as this user, I need to join that hub. I know that the site that I created, it needs to be its payroll. It needs to be joined to that finance hub and spoke model. So what can I do? This is something that has been kind of interesting as I started to dig into this, because I am seeing the options for this kind of situation, but they just seem like they're not fully built out yet. And one thing I will show you specifically, and I put that link in Slack, so I'm going to go open that up real quick. Let's see. Alright, so this set SPO, and I put this link in just a few minutes ago into the chat. And this is basically once you have a hub site, you can set specific things about it. So like the title, the logo URL that I was talking about, the description, the site design ID, and then there's this one called requires join approval. Now I will tell you guys that I tried to run this and get it to function for a long time yesterday, and it just will not. It just acts like that requires join approval does not exist as a as a commandlet or whatever. And I tried all different values because it's a Boolean, so I tried all the different values there. I went and looked it up, and I just cannot find anything. So I feel like almost like this is in the documentation, but maybe not functioning yet, and that eventually this will be kind of like an approval process that's maybe more built into this hub site process, but right now that doesn't really seem to exist. So you'll even notice too, which I kind of thought was pretty funny, was you'll notice that even in the documentation where it says requires join approval, it says a description of the hub site, which is just a description of the hub site. It's the documentation isn't like fully complete either. So I feel like, and they don't even have it in the example. They're not showing it in your regular like the PowerShell example. Usually in those examples they'll show like pretty much everything. So they're not showing it there. So that doesn't seem to function right now. I did want to point it out. Absolutely feel free to test this on your own and see if you can get it to function, but I just could not get it to do anything. Like, no matter what I did, it just didn't want to, it didn't want to recognize requires join approval. That's pretty much what I was seeing in PowerShell, was it just not recognizing that. It would recognize title, it recognized description, it recognized all of that fine, it said it, but it didn't seem to want to recognize that require join approval. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. And I mentioned that, because I think that there's a bigger idea coming here, and maybe when that is activated, there's going to actually be like a built-in approval process that you will have maybe from the admin center or something, but right now there isn't. So I set out to try to see, is there a way to create an approval process in the meantime while we wait? And I used Flow because I noticed in Flow we had some actions around hub site approval. I want to go through and kind of show you what I did, but I will tell you that this seems to be probably not the best solution. It's definitely something that's good to understand, good to see what's out there, good to see how they function, because maybe as things continue to evolve, they'll actually be a little bit easier to use. But the whole idea I had was I wanted to have on the Finance Hub, so the actual hub, I wanted to have a list here called Join This Hub that people, almost like a quick little form, that people could fill out. And they would basically come here and input some information, and then my idea was a flow would then run an approval process. So the flow would run, it would go to whoever owns this hub site, it would get their approval, and then it would join that site to the hub. So let me go see, and let me look for questions real quick, because I feel like this is kind of a confusing thing. Let me see. Creating subset, yep, we said that. Lisa, what level of permissions does someone need to join a hub site? They just need to have the full control on the site that they're on. So if that hub site's open to everybody, then if they have full control on their site, they can connect to it. So hopefully that answers. And then Paul's asking me about a Visio thing. I'll look at that at the end, Paul. I'll come back to that question. There might be a way to do that. We used to do really cool stuff with Visio back in SharePoint 2013. We actually haven't messed with it too much, but that's a good question. I'll come back to that. All right, so like I said, I wanted this list. The user comes in. I need to join this hub site, so they just fill this out, and then a flow runs and does all the heavy lifting. So I started working on that flow. So here it is, called Hub Approval. I'm going to go ahead and edit this and kind of talk you through this slightly problematic flow. So pretty straightforward in the beginning. The trigger is just when an item's created. So when somebody adds something to that join hub list. I'm just doing, of course you could do the approval process in several different ways, but I'm just doing it really simple and doing send email with options. And it's sending it to me, and that's because, obviously you could build that, to look at something else if you needed it to. But it's sending it to me, and it's basically asking me to approve a join request, and then my options are just approved and rejected. And then my condition, I don't think I did anything else there. Oh, I just linked to the item, the actual item that they're sending over in the body. And then I put in a condition, and so from the send email with options, I have selected option is one of the dynamic content, their output that comes from that. So that means that that's just the option that they selected, the approved or rejected. So I went ahead and put that and then just made that equal to approved. If it is approved, then I am using these actions that you will see if you search hub in flow action. So there is this approve hub site join request, and then join hub site. And then if they don't approve, if they hit rejected, then it just cancels the hub site join request. And I was kind of messing with this for a while, because I kept getting a lot of access denied issues. And so I was trying a couple of different things, trying to figure out exactly, what it needed. So I will tell you now that what I have found out is that the approve hub site join request thing, completely unnecessary. So after a lot of trial and error, I realized that the join hub site is really the only thing that's needed. Even though this is a hub site that is secured to just one person, basically what I found out there is that the approve hub site join request just isn't really necessary. I have it in here because I still wanted to kind of get an approval record from it, if you will. And then maybe that, in the future, if that becomes a thing, I can use that somehow. But I could have just left that out and just gone right to join hub site, and it would have done it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So with you leaving approve hub site join request, if I open that up, you'll see here that it wants the hub site address and the requesting site ID. And actually, let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, so the hub site, so I guess if, let me try running it real quick. I want to see if it will do it, because they would have to have, the title is just here or there, but they had the site URL, so the URL to their site, and then the GUID of their site. And that was only in there because when I thought that I needed that approval action. So that one, this right here, when I thought I needed that. So I was doing some testing before the session started, and it just seemed like on another flow I was running, I didn't really need this to be a part of it. It looked like it would add it without me doing anything. Now, of course, you still may want to have like an approval process here, the send email with options, because you still want your person that kind of manages that hub site to kind of have that say, like, oh yes, we can join this. We don't want to just automatically do it. So what I'm going to try to do, and I tested this in a different flow, but I'm going to try to take this approve hub site join request. I'm going to try to take it out and just run it without that, because having to get the GUID is really what blows up this whole process. Because if they need the GUID, then they're your regular end user is probably not going to be able to get into PowerShell and run the script to get that. And there's literally only one PNP script that you can run that will actually give you that information. So it's complicated. So let me go ahead and delete that. And actually, I think I probably have to go. I'm going to wipe out the approval token here, because I was putting that, and I'm going to delete this. We're going to see if we can run it without it. And then this cancel hub site join request, I'll just leave that in there. I mean, I don't think it's really going to hurt or do anything, so we'll just leave it in there, because we're going to approve it anyway. So yeah, I think that's that. So let's see if we can get it to function without that. I'm thinking it will. So I'm getting all kinds of messages of connectivity issues, so let me just make sure that you guys can still see and hear me. Okay, so it looks like hopefully you guys can still hear me, because I'm getting messages of CPU, of course, but I have everything closed, so I can't really close anything else. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we're going to try it out and see if it will do it. Because if it does, then this actually might work a little bit better than I thought. Oops, am I rerunning this? Did I break it? I don't know why those two are running. That might be something I did earlier. Okay, I'll worry about that in a bit. Can I just cancel? Just get this all canceled out. So it doesn't affect the one I'm going to run. Okay, so hopefully we're good now on. Okay, so I'm going to go as my user. And now I don't need the GUID, so I'm just going to grab the URL to my payroll site, and I want to join the hub site. I can't do that from the browser as I showed you guys. So this is payroll, and I want to join it. I'm going to put the URL in. I'm not going to worry about the GUID, because we're going to see if we can do it without it. Put that in there, and then I'm going to, as the user, I'm going to click away. And we'll go to flow, and let's see if flow is actually going to do its thing. See if it fails or if it's running. It's running, so I'm going to go to my email in this tenant. So this is the email of me, the admin. Love how everything's so slow. Alright. 1239, this is the one. It says approve payroll join request. It's thinking. And as you can see, it has the link to the item there. It's not very pretty. We could do things to make that pretty. And then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say, oh yeah, payroll needs to join my hub. I'm going to approve that. And now that I approved it, let's see what our friend the flow does now. Ooh. It says it succeeded. So it says it did it. Now let's go, as my user, let's go back over to my payroll site. See, right now it has a gray background, but you'll notice it doesn't have the navigation at the top or anything. So let me go ahead and refresh. And Finance Hub is at the top. Now, Finance Hub, I didn't put any navigation in there yet, but you'll see that it's up there. So we now see that it is joined to the hub. So what does that mean? What does all that back and forth mean? It means that those actions, the hub approval action, just kind of like the required join approval in the PowerShell script, are not necessary. At the current time. Now, that might change because maybe they're actually going to build it out so it's like an actual approval process that is just kind of built in, like a nice template, and you don't have to do all this stuff, like you don't have to send email with options and all that kind of thing. But from what I can tell right now, there really isn't a need for it at this current time. So, and like I said, the big problem with that approve action was that it required the site GUID, the requester's GUID. So if it required the hub site GUID, not that big a deal because the admin could just get that once and put it in there. But it actually was requiring the site that was wanting to join's GUID. And your regular users, your regular site owners, are not going to probably have the ability to get out in PowerShell, run a little script, and get that site ID, that site GUID. And I did try, just so you know, because I know sometimes site ID can mean like the URL or the GUID. I did try the URL, and I tried that a few different ways, and it only wanted the site ID. And I actually found something online where somebody was saying like, nope, it's only wanting the site ID here. So, just something to know. If you are, obviously, we might see this evolve, and those things may, the required join approval and all that stuff may kind of get built out more. But in the meantime, if you are like kind of fully rolling out hub sites and you're really trying to govern them, then this would probably be the easiest way to do it for now. And just to kind of recap what I did, I'll go back over here. On the actual finance page, I created a list called Join This Hub, and I just had them input the title and the URL. We don't need the GUID right now, at least we don't think so. So I just had them put the title and the URL of their site, and then my hub, or my flow, why do I keep wanting to say hub for that? My flow, it looks for when an item is created in that list. It does send email with options, so it basically sends an email to the admin of that hub site and says, do you want to approve this? And you could do there's a lot of options with this, to really give them an HTML message and make the link look pretty. Like there's a lot of things you can do with that. So I was just being very, very straightforward with it. And then I just put in a simple condition that looks at what their response is from send email with options is equal to approved. And then if it's yes, I do the join hub site. And then all join hub site needed was the site URL, which is from the when item is created, the site URL they put in. And then the hub site's GUID, or the hub site, not the GUID, the hub site ID. And that is something that you can just get, like when you do get hub site or whatever, you can just run a script. Let me go find that real quick, actually, so I don't, let me give you the exact one for that. I think it's set SPO. There it is. And this one's a lot more straightforward. And I'll put that in the chat. get SPO hub site. And that'll get you the ID for that, for get SPO hub site. So then with that ID, you can put it in there, and that's just the hub site ID, so that's like a static thing basically. You get that, you put it in there as the admin when you're creating this flow, and then it just it stays the same. That doesn't need to change with every request. And then all I did, I think I just put like an ID. They have an approval token, which feels like this is where I'm saying that I feel like it's like a half-baked thing, right? I think eventually there could be something with that approval process, but it just doesn't really seem to... It functions, but it doesn't really seem to be necessary at this time, because it will just let you join this way. And then, if no, I just canceled it. So that the if no is really up to you, what you want to put in there. You could just send another email to the requester or something like that. Okay, let me go over to the chat. I'm also going to close some of these windows, maybe in case there's any speed issues. All right. So, do you guys have any questions? I'm a little early. I'm not as good at stretching it out like Laura is. But we got about like 10 minutes or so left, so let me know if you guys have any questions. I think I pretty much covered the things that I wanted to cover, though. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover there. Do you guys think that would be helpful? Do you feel like you work in an organization where you would want to kind of limit people joining hub sites on of their own volition? Would you feel like a process like that might be good to put in place? I feel like for a larger organization that's really trying to be organized about their hub sites, this could be really helpful. And until, like I said, some of the stuff that I feel like they're putting in there slowly is actually a part of the process, that flow process could be something that you use in the meantime, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And let me know if you have any questions about hub sites that I can answer that I didn't really address, because I'd be happy, we have a few minutes, I'll be happy to circle back on some of the hub site basics if we need to. Oh yeah, so Paul, you had your question, I'll look at that real quick. So you're trying to add a Visio diagram from an associated site in the Hero Web part of the hub site. If I use the file view, it works, but not when I add it in the Hero Web part. Any suggestions? So the Hero Web part is only going to look for an image. It's not going to allow you to, like, are you trying to interact with if you're trying to interact with the Visio, the Hero Web part wouldn't be a good place, because the Hero Web part's really just going to look for an image and then a link. So what you could do is you could, like, link it to wherever that file viewer web part is sitting. You could put that file viewer web part on a page by itself and then have that Hero Web part linked to it. But it won't actually be interactive in the Hero Web part, as far as I know. I haven't seen an ability to do that, so hopefully that helps a little. I mean, I know it's not the answer you're probably looking for, but might help. So Lisa says, definitely want to limit this. Curious users will check it out for sake of checking it out. Oh, the hub site, joining. Lisa, do you mean like joining to the hub site? Yeah, that's what I kind of wonder too. You want to kind of put some control around it. So you have the ability to create the header. So let's see. Lisa. So do you not see footer here? And that might be because if you don't see footer there, it might be because you're using a team site. Because I feel like I noticed that there was a difference between these options, and I haven't looked exactly which ones there are yet, but I feel like there's a difference in these options whether you're using a team site or a communication site. Do you happen to know if you're using one or the other? Because I feel like if it's a communication site, you should see the footer, unless there's just some kind of like really early release schedule that hasn't pushed it yet. But that might be why you're not seeing it. So let me know. We can kind of dig into that more. Craig, I like this, so I would like to implement. Just going to be a question if I will get the access to this or not. Yeah, I know that's that can be a problem. But hopefully it just requires some information out of PowerShell, very simple PowerShell scripts to do this, and then flow, obviously. I just got the other options back. They were there, then gone, then back. Communication site. Yeah, if it's a communication site and you're not seeing it, it's probably just a release thing. Yeah, Microsoft Peekaboo, exactly. Because that's really the only difference. Because I just have like a regular. This is a tenant that's on like the extreme first release. So it gets like everything right away. But then, like you guys saw a couple of sessions ago, I was even seeing things disappear just the same way. So yeah, that might be what it is, but it should show up eventually. Like I said, it might just be for communication sites too. So, if you, when in doubt, try adding a new communication site that you can then just delete later, just if you want to play with it to see. Sometimes I've seen that work. All right. Hopefully the connectivity was okay today, guys. We'll see. I guess we'll see on the recording that goes up. I think the last time I did it, the connectivity was okay for the live, but then the recording had my audio off a little bit, so we'll see how that works. So I will stick around for questions. So PowerShell, oh, Craig says PowerShell is the issue. Yeah, I know that is something that companies like to limit, but it might be helpful just to, I don't know obviously the situation exactly, but it could be helpful to just, if they're just scared of PowerShell and they're not really aware of what you can do, it might be good to just kind of, show them something like this and show that you can just run very simple things, that aren't really gonna, these kind of scripts don't really have much power over what they're doing. So it might be worth just kind of showing what you can accomplish, and hopefully they could give some access, or at least like give you access to somebody who can run it for you, if that's the situation. Like I said, I don't know. I know every company's a lot different with that kind of stuff, so. But it is helpful, definitely. Yeah, I hear you, Lisa. Well, no worries. I will, like I said, we still have a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead. I guess I'll close out the stream. And I will stay inside of our Slack channel for a little bit, answering questions in case you guys are watching it on a bit of a delay. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week. Laura will be back next week, and we will see